Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tells the country's diaspora in the US that the American Indian spirit is the new AI power of the world.
मैं मानता हूं कि एआई का मतलब है अमेरिका इंडिया, ये स्पिरिट है.
India to open 2 new consulates in the US cities of Boston and Los Angeles. Prime Minister Modi makes the announcement at a mega Indian diaspora event in New York. Anura Kumara Dissanayake wins Sri Lanka's presidential election. The 55-year-old Marxist leader gets 42.31% of the vote in Saturday's election. And double delight for India at Chess Olympiad. Its men's and women's teams make history, win maiden gold medal in respective categories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is on a 3-day visit to the US, addressed the Indian diaspora at Nassau Coliseum in New York on Sunday. More than 16,000 people from all corners of the country attended the event to welcome Prime Minister Modi and listen to his much-anticipated speech. Prime Minister Modi spoke about how embracing diversity is part of the Indian culture and how unity in diversity is India's greatest strength.
मां भारती ने जो हमें सिखाया है वो हम कभी भी भूल नहीं सकते. हम जहां भी जाते हैं सबको परिवार मानकर उनसे घुल मिल जाते हैं. डायवर्सिटी को समझना, डायवर्सिटी को जीना, उसे अपने जीवन में उतारना, ये हमारे संस्कारों में है, हमारी रगों में है. हम उस देश के वासी हैं जहां सैकड़ों भाषाएं हैं, सैकड़ों बोलियां हैं, दुनिया के सारे मत है, पंथ है, फिर भी हम एक बनकर, नेक बनकर आगे बढ़ रहे हैं.
Prime Minister Modi appreciated the role of the Indian diaspora in connecting India and the US. He said the diaspora's skill, talent and commitment have catalyzed the relations between the two countries.
आपने अमेरिका को भारत से और भारत को अमेरिका से कनेक्ट किया है. आपका स्किल, आपका टैलेंट, आपका कमिटमेंट, इसका कोई मुकाबला नहीं है. आप 7 समंदर पार भले आए गए हैं, लेकिन कोई समंदर इतना गहरा नहीं जो दिल की गहराइयों में बसे हिंदुस्तान को आपसे दूर कर सके.
Prime Minister Modi said that for the world, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but AI also represents America-India spirit.
दुनिया के लिए AI का मतलब है आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, लेकिन मैं मानता हूं कि AI का मतलब है अमेरिकन इंडियन अमेरिका इंडिया, ये स्पिरिट है और वही तो नई दुनिया का AI पावर है। यही AI स्पिरिट भारत अमेरिका रिश्तों को नई ऊंचाई दे रहा है।
Prime Minister Modi said that the world's largest election was held in India earlier this year.
जब हम भारत की डेमोक्रेसी का उसका स्केल देखते हैं तो और भी गर्व होता है। 3 महीने का पोलिंग प्रोसेस, 15 मिलियन यानी 1.5 करोड़ लोगों का पोलिंग स्टाफ, 1 मिलियन यानी 10 लाख से ज्यादा पोलिंग स्टेशन, 2,500 से ज्यादा पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, 8,000 से ज्यादा कैंडिडेट्स, अलग अलग भाषाओं के हजारों न्यूज़पेपर्स, सैकड़ों रेडियो स्टेशन, सैकड़ों टीवी न्यूज चैनल, करोड़ों सोशल मीडिया अकाउंट्स, लाखों सोशल मीडिया चैनल्स, ये सब भारत की डेमोक्रेसी को वाइब्रेंट बनाते हैं। ये फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन के विस्तार का दौर है। इस लेवल की स्क्रूटनी से होकर हमारे देश की चुनावी प्रक्रिया गुजरती है और साथियों, इस लंबी चुनावी प्रक्रिया से गुजरकर इस बार भारत में कुछ अभूतपूर्व हुआ है। क्या हुआ है? क्या हुआ है? क्या हुआ है? क्या हुआ है? अब की बार
In his address, the Prime Minister spoke about his vision for India's future. He called it PUSHP, which in Hindi means a flower. He said that the acronym PUSHP is putting India on the path to progress and prosperity.
आपको एक शब्द याद रहेगा, पुष्प। हाँ, कमल मान लीजिए, मुझे इतराज नहीं है। पुष्प, और मैं पुष्प को डिफाइन करता हूं, P फॉर प्रोग्रेसिव भारत, U फॉर अनस्टॉपेबल भारत, S फॉर स्पिरिचुअल भारत, H फॉर ह्यूमैनिटी फर्स्ट को समर्पित भारत, P फॉर प्रोस्परस भारत, यानी पुष्प। पुष्प की 5 पंखुड़ियों को मिलाकर ही विकसित भारत बनाएंगे।
Prime Minister Modi said that India is now the land of opportunities. The country does not wait for opportunities anymore. Instead, it creates opportunities.
भारत आज लैंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज है, अवसरों की धरती है। अब भारत अवसरों का इंतजार नहीं करता, अब भारत अवसरों का निर्माण करता है। बीते 10 साल में भारत ने हर सेक्टर में अपॉर्चुनिटीज का एक नया लॉन्चिंग पैड तैयार किया है। आप देखिए, सिर्फ एक दशक में ही, और ये बात आप सबको गर्व देगी, एक दशक में ही 25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी से बाहर निकले हैं।
India and the US have entered into an arrangement to set up manufacturing of a new semiconductor fabrication plant focused on advanced sensing, communication and power electronics for national security, next generation telecommunications and green energy applications. It will be the first ever India-US semiconductor fab cooperation of its kind.
US President Joe Biden and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed a watershed arrangement to establish a new semiconductor fabrication plant focused on advanced sensing, communication and power electronics for national security, next generation telecommunications and green energy applications. The fab will be enabled by support from the India Semiconductor Mission as well as a strategic technology partnership between Bharat Semi, Third iTech and the US Space Force. Some of the key highlights are: this is the first ever India-US semiconductor fab cooperation of its kind. It's the first time ever the US military has agreed to do a technology partnership for these highly valued technologies with India, hence making it a watershed moment as powerful as the civil nuclear deal. The fab becomes not only India's first, but also one of the world's first multi-material fab for national security. The Bharat Semi fab, titled Shakti, also becomes one of the first fabs of its kind in the Quad. The fab will focus on 3 essential pillars for the modern war fighting: advanced sensing, advanced communications, and high voltage power electronics. These 3 areas also have huge growing needs for commercial sectors such as railways, telecom infrastructure and data centers and green energy. These semiconductors fall under a family known as compound semiconductors. 3 main tech areas include infrared, gallium nitride and silicon carbide. It's part of PM Modi's vision for India to become a chip maker from a chip taker. This fab becomes a national asset and further helps India's goals of becoming a net security provider in the region. This is a glass ceiling broken in tech diplomacy and years down the road will go down in history books as a watershed moment in India-US relationships. India's current import bill in these semiconductors for national security alone is $1 billion a year. This becomes the first true India-US semiconductor fab project. Other projects in the past have included testing and assembly OSAT. But this is raising the game and going into true chip fabrication, the holy grail of semiconductors.
भारत चाहता है दुनिया में ज्यादा से ज्यादा डिवाइस मेड इन इंडिया चिप पर चलें। हमने सेमीकंडक्टर सेक्टर को भी भारत की तेज ग्रोथ का आधार बनाया है। पिछले साल जून में भारत ने सेमीकंडक्टर सेक्टर के लिए इंसेंटिव घोषित किए थे। इसके कुछ ही महीनों बाद माइक्रोन की पहली सेमीकंडक्टर यूनिट का शिलान्यास भी हो गया।
After this tech partnership, India will join a handful of elite nations with the capability and know-how to manufacture these types of semiconductors on shore. Bureau Report, DD India.
Speaking about India's freedom struggle, Prime Minister Modi said that he did not get a chance to sacrifice his life for the freedom of the country. But from day one of his election as the country's Prime Minister, his mission has been to dedicate his life for the freedom and prosperity of the nation.
पहले दिन से मेरा मन और मेरा मिशन एकदम क्लियर रहा है। मैं स्वराज के लिए जीवन नहीं दे पाया, लेकिन मैंने तय किया सुराज और समृद्ध भारत के लिए जीवन समर्पित करूंगा। मेरे जीवन का एक बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा ऐसा रहा जिसमें मैं सालों साल तक पूरे देश में घूमता रहा, भटकता रहा। जहां खाना मिला वहां खा लिया, जहां सोने को मिला वहां सो लिया। समंदर के किनारे से लेकर पहाड़ों तक, रेगिस्तान से लेकर बर्फीली चोटियों तक मैं हर क्षेत्र के लोगों से मिला, उनको जाना, समझा। मैंने अपने देश के जीवन, अपने देश की संस्कृति, अपने देश की चुनौतियों का फर्स्ट हैंड एक्सपीरियंस लिया। वो भी एक वक्त था जब मैंने अपनी दिशा कुछ और तय की थी, लेकिन नियति ने मुझे राजनीति में पहुंचा दिया।
Prime Minister Modi said that India's 5G market is bigger than that of the US, and the change has taken place just within 2 years. Today, India was working on a Made in India 6G.
आप हैरान होंगे, आज भारत का 5G मार्केट, बताऊं? बुरा नहीं लगेगा ना? आज भारत का 5G मार्केट अमेरिका से भी बड़ा हो चुका है। और ये 2 साल के भीतर भीतर हुआ है। अब तो भारत मेड इन इंडिया 6G पर काम कर रहा है। ये कैसे हुआ? ये इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि हमने इस सेक्टर को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए पॉलिसीज बनाई। हमने मेड इन इंडिया टेक्नोलॉजी पर काम किया। हमने सस्ते डेटा पर मोबाइल फोन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर फोकस किया। आज दुनिया का करीब करीब हर बड़ा मोबाइल ब्रांड मेड इन इंडिया है।
The Indian Prime Minister also spoke about how the country will play a role in enhancing global growth.
आज का भारत दुनिया में एक नए कैटलिस्ट एजेंट की तरह उभर रहा है और इसका प्रभाव हर सेक्टर में दिखेगा। ग्लोबल ग्रोथ के प्रोसेस को तेज करने के लिए भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल पीस के प्रोसेस को तेज करने के लिए भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट एक्शन को स्पीड अप करने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल स्किल गैप को दूर करने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल इनोवेशंस को नई दिशा देने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन में स्टेबिलिटी के लिए भारत का भूमिका अहम होगा। साथियों, भारत के लिए शक्ति और सामर्थ्य का अर्थ है, भारत के लिए शक्ति और सामर्थ्य का अर्थ है ज्ञानाय, दानाय, च रक्षणाय। यानी नॉलेज इज फॉर शेयरिंग, वेल्थ इज फॉर कैरिंग, पावर is for protecting.
Prime Minister Modi announced that India will open 2 new consulates in Boston and Los Angeles.
मुझे आपको ये बताते हुए खुशी है कि आपके सुझावों के बाद भारत ने बोस्टन और लॉस एंजलिस में 2 नए कॉन्सुलेट खोलने का निर्णय लिया है।
The US returned 297 antiquities that had either been stolen or trafficked from India. Prime Minister Modi said that the gesture indicates that India and its people are respected globally.
कल ही अमेरिका ने हमारे करीब 300 पुराने जो शिलालेख और मूर्तियां थी जो कभी हिंदुस्तान से कोई चोरी कर गया होगा, कोई 1500 साल पुरानी, कोई 2000 साल पुरानी, 300 शिलालेख और मूर्तियां भारत को लौटाई है। अभी तक अमेरिका ऐसी लगभग 500 धरोहरें भारत को लौटा चुका है। ये कोई छोटी सी चीज लौटाने का विषय नहीं है, ये हमारी हजारों वर्षों की विरासत का सम्मान है, ये भारत का सम्मान है और ये आपका भी सम्मान है। मैं अमेरिका की सरकार का इसके लिए बहुत आभारी हूं।
Now, this repatriation is a result of the strong bilateral ties and cultural cooperation between the two nations. During their bilateral meeting at Wilmington in Delaware on Saturday, Prime Minister Modi and President Biden were presented with a selection of these artifacts. This gesture follows the Cultural Preservation Agreement signed in July 2024, fulfilling commitments made by President Biden and Prime Minister Modi to safeguard cultural heritage, which flowed from a joint statement issued after the two leaders met in June 2023. Now, some of the notable antiquities handed over to India include Apsara in sandstone from central India belonging to the 10th or 11th century CE, Jain Tirthankar in bronze from central India belonging to the 15th or 16th century CE, terracotta vase from eastern India belonging to the 3rd and 4th century CE, stone sculpture from southern India belonging to the 1st century BCE, Lord Ganesha in bronze from southern India, standing Lord Buddha in sandstone from northern India, Lord Vishnu in bronze from eastern India, anthropomorphic figure in copper from northern India, Lord Krishna in bronze from southern India belonging to the 17th and 18th century, and Lord Kartikeya in granite from southern India belonging to the 13th and 14th centuries. Before Prime Minister Modi's address, the Indian diaspora performed dance and played music at the Nassau Coliseum in New York. Dressed in traditional Indian attire, they danced to popular numbers. The dancers all hail from various Indian states. Right, moving on, world leaders have started arriving at the United Nations for the first day of the Summit of the Future on Sunday. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the summit as part of his three-day tour of the US. The UN Secretary General called for the two-day summit, which is being held on the 22nd and 23rd of September, ahead of the UN General Assembly debate, which kicks off on Tuesday. UN member states are negotiating three documents which they hope to adopt: a pact for the future, a declaration on future generations, and a global digital compact. Now, Prime Minister Modi will address the Summit of the Future at the United Nations on 23rd September. DD India's Amritpal Singh reports from the UN headquarters.
United Nations, the apex global body which has often been criticized for failing humanity to address its current problems. The UN is now staging a summit of the future, which has an ambitious agenda to find solutions to the emerging problems, the solutions to problems which may affect humanity in the near future, to evolve a global consensus, a pact for future which solves humanity's problems. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing world leaders on Monday at the Summit of the Future, making a strong case for keeping international commitments on sustainable development, financing for the developing countries, and transforming the global governance architecture to make it more effective and equitable. But the big question is, will world leaders be able to keep their differences aside and find solutions to the problems of the world? But despite the cynicism, it is a welcome step by the UN, because as the Mahatma once said, the future depends on what you do today. With cameraman Sumit Naudiyal, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India at the UN headquarters in New York.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. 4 dead and dozens injured in a mass shooting outside a bar in the US state of Alabama. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict escalates. And hundreds of people in Tunisia hold a sit-in against President Kais Saied, accusing him of deepening his authoritarian rule and stifling political competition.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Geopolitics and trade deals, economic challenges amid development, hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi tells the country's diaspora in the US that the American Indian spirit is the new AI power of the world. India to open 2 new consulates in the US cities of Boston and Los Angeles. Prime Minister Modi makes the announcement at a mega Indian diaspora event in New York. And Anurag Kumara Dissanayake wins Sri Lanka's presidential election. The 55-year-old Marxist leader gets 42.31% of the vote in Saturday's election. After concluding the Quad Leaders Summit in Delaware, US President Joe Biden returned to the White House on Sunday. While addressing journalists, Biden said that the United States will do everything possible to prevent an escalation of the conflict in West Asia as hostilities flare up between Israel and the Hezbollah.
Yes, I am, but we're going to do everything we can to keep a wider war from breaking out. And we're still pushing hard. Thank you.
Biden said that the meetings with Quad leaders were successful and that they are working unitedly.
We had very successful meetings with the Quad in Delaware. Total unity, we're all working together. We feel good about what we're doing. And I think the other leaders do as well.
Israel's Army Chief Herzi Halevi said on Sunday that it was well prepared for the next stages of fighting against the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel and the Hezbollah exchanged heavy fire into Sunday. Israeli warplanes carried out the most intense bombardment in almost a year of conflict across Lebanon's south. The Israeli military said it struck nearly 300 targets on Saturday, including thousands of Hezbollah rocket launcher barrels. It said it would continue to hit more such targets. Israel closed schools and restricted gatherings in many northern areas and ordered hospitals there to transfer their operations to facilities with extra protection from rocket and missile fire.
We have attacked over the past few days hundreds of terrorist targets in Lebanon. This morning, Hezbollah fired to the north once more. This fire was directed towards civilians. No sovereign state can tolerate such a threat against its citizens and its sovereignty. Hezbollah places its launchers next to Lebanese civilians, and by that it endangers them. We will do whatever it takes to remove threats against Israel. We will return the residents safely to their homes of Hezbollah. Still has not understood this after the past 2 weeks, then it will keep getting hit until it does.
Meanwhile, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy addressed the Labour Party's conference on Sunday. He painted an optimistic future for Britain on the global stage. Lammy proudly proclaimed that Britain was back when talking about its relationship with Europe. He reaffirmed his calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
In my first weeks of government, I went to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories to call for an immediate ceasefire. Words no previous foreign secretary had even used.
Across the Atlantic in the U.S., a shooting outside a nightclub in the U.S. state of Alabama on Saturday left 4 people dead and 18 injured. A video captured in the aftermath of the shooting showed a victim's body on the sidewalk and several eyewitnesses talking to each other. Multiple shooters fired into a group of people as they waited to enter the nightclub in Birmingham. A manhunt for the suspects is underway. Officials from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms were assisting with the investigation. In other news, Sri Lanka elected a Marxist-Leninist leader Anura Kumara Dissanayake as its new president on Sunday, putting faith in his pledge to fight corruption and bolster a fragile economic recovery following the South Asian nation's worst financial crisis in decades. 55-year-old Dissanayake, who does not possess political lineage like some of his rivals in the presidential election, knocked out incumbent Ranil Wickremesinghe and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. The election was a referendum on Wickremesinghe, who led the heavily indebted nation's fragile economic recovery from an economic meltdown. But the austerity measures, which were key to this recovery, angered voters. He finished third with 17% of the votes. Dissanayake polled 5.6 million or 42.3% of the votes, a massive boost to the 3% he had managed in the last presidential election in 2019. Premadasa was second at 32.8%. And Prime Minister Modi of India congratulated Mr. Dissanayake. He wrote on X, and I quote him here, "Congratulations, Anura Dissanayake, on your win in the Sri Lankan presidential elections. Sri Lanka is very important to India's neighborhood first policy and vision, Sagar. I'm excited to work with you to build our partnership and improve life for our people and the entire region," unquote. And India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Shah, called on President-elect Anura Kumara Dissanayake in Colombo. The envoy conveyed the greetings from the Indian leadership and congratulated Mr. Dissanayake on winning the mandate. India, as Sri Lanka's civilizational twin, says it's committed to further deepening the ties for the prosperity of the people of their two countries. Kenya's President William Ruto, on a visit to Haiti, said on Saturday that he was open to Kenya's anti-gang fighting mission in the country being converted to a UN peacekeeping operation. Ruto visited violence-plagued Haiti to assess the progress of the multinational security support mission, where Kenya is playing a leading role to curb rampant gang violence that has ushered years of political chaos and mass displacement. The mandate of the mission, first approved by the United Nations Security Council for 12 months, is set to expire at the start of October. The 15-member UN Security Council is due to vote on 30th September on renewing the mandate. Kenya sent about 400 police officers to Port-au-Prince in June and July. A handful of other countries have together pledged at least 1,900 more troops.
As you are all aware, on the 21st of September last year, a day like today, I stood before the United Nations General Assembly to undertake Kenya's leadership of the multinational security force, subsequent to the United Nations Security Council providing the necessary mandate. And I'm very happy that today I have arrived in this city and the multinational security support mission is on its 100-day presence.
In more news from Africa, hundreds of Tunisians protested on Sunday against President Kais Saied, accusing him of deepening his authoritarian rule and stifling political competition just 2 weeks before a presidential election. Amid heavy police presence, protesters for a second week marched along the capital Tunis's main avenue, a focal point of the 2011 Arab Spring Revolution, chanting slogans including "The people want the fall of the regime" and "Out with dictator Saied." The protests came after lawmakers proposed a bill to strip the administrative government and court of its authority to adjudicate electoral disputes, a move that the opposition says will discredit the 6th October election and pave the way for Saied to secure a second term. Political tensions in the North African country have risen since an electoral commission named by Saied disqualified 3 prominent presidential candidates, Monde Zinedi, Abdel Latif Meki and Imed Daimi. At the United Nations Summit of the Future, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa called on Sunday for significant reforms in global governance structures, including the UN Security Council. Ramaphosa said that it's unjust, unfair and unsustainable to entrust the world's safety to a select few countries. Ramaphosa stressed the importance of multilateral actions and concrete commitments to advance peace and development in Africa and the world. He warned that failure to act would be a betrayal to future generations. The United Nations General Assembly adopted a pact for the future on Sunday, which UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres described as a landmark agreement that is a step change towards more effective, inclusive, networked multilateralism.
That Pact for the Future is a great opportunity to change and also to reinvigorate the multilateral system so that it is fit for purpose to address the challenges that the world faces. It is an opportunity also to make good on the promises to reform the global governance architecture, including the international finance institutions and the United Nations Security Council, placing the fate of the world's security in the hands of a select few when it is the vast majority of the peoples of the world who bear the brunt of the various threats is unjust, unfair and unsustainable.
In France's overseas region of Martinique, demonstrators held a peaceful protest outside a shopping mall on Saturday to protest against the high cost of living. Authorities banned the demonstrations in 4 municipalities until Monday and imposed a curfew earlier this week. Protests are also taking place on the neighboring island of Guadeloupe, where a strike by workers at French energy utility EDF caused power outages for the population during the week. The Danube peaked at a 10-year high in a heavily fortified Budapest on Saturday, with the water reaching the steps of Hungary's parliament after deadly storm Boris lashed Europe. Torrential rains and strong winds have led to widespread flooding in Central and Eastern Europe since last week, killing 24 people and devastating towns and villages. Villagers in Baja, a 160 kilometers south of Budapest, were navigating flooded streets in boats on Sunday as the Danube River continued to rise. Residents say they have never witnessed 3 floods in a year. The floodwaters are expected to peak, moving south toward Serbian and Croatian localities. In Budapest, the Danube is forecast to reach 8.5 meters, near record levels, but still below those seen in 2013. This past week has seen floods wreak havoc across Central Europe, leaving destruction from Romania to Poland. As the swollen Danube waters move south, Hungary's emergency workers lugged sandbags to fortify settlements, including Budapest, where the river has flooded the embankment up to the steps of the parliament. Experts say that climate change caused by greenhouse gas emissions generated by human activity is increasing the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events such as torrential rains and floods. A roadside bomb hit a convoy of foreign diplomats visiting northwestern Pakistan on Sunday, killing a police officer in their security detail. Soldiers and police searched the area after the bombing and imposed a curfew. No one has so far claimed responsibility for the attack, which was condemned by Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari. According to local police, all the nearly dozen diplomats were safe and were heading back to Islamabad. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India will host the 16th Assembly of Asian Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions in New Delhi from 24th to 27th of September. The event will be inaugurated by President Draupadi Murmu. It will focus on the role of Supreme Audit Institutions in enhancing transparency and accountability. A highlight of this year's assembly is the assumption of the chair of the organization by India's Girish Chandra Murmu for the 2024 to 2027 term. More than 200 delegates from 42 countries and organizations will participate, highlighting the organization's collaborative spirit. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's cricket board announces squad for the second test against Bangladesh. And McLaren's Lando Norris dominates the Singapore Grand Prix from start to finish.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life. Welcome to heaven on earth.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to news from the world of sport. India's chess team scripted history by winning 2 gold medals in the open and women's sections on Sunday in Hungary. In the open section, the Indian men's team outplayed Slovenia 3.5 to 0.5. Gukesh, Arjun and Pragnananda secured wins, whereas Vidit drew his game comfortably in the round of 11. In the women's section, India crushed Azerbaijan. Harika, Divya and Vantika scored wins, whereas Vaishali settled for a draw. The Indian team will be awarded the prestigious Kaprin Dashvili Cup, which is given to the best performing federation that includes the performance of open and women's sections. With this victory, India bettered its performance from the 2022 Olympiad, but it won a bronze medal on home soil. Previously, India won a bronze in the 2014 edition. India made a mark in the world of chess on Sunday, winning 2 golds at the 45th Chess Olympiad. Its men's and women's teams won a gold each, and Prime Minister Modi spoke about the win in his address to the Indian diaspora in the US.
भारत एनर्जी से भरा हुआ है, सपनों से भरा हुआ है। रोज नए कीर्तिमान, हर रोज नई खबर। आज ही एक और बहुत अच्छी खबर मिली है। चेस ओलंपियाड में मेंस और वुमेन्स दोनों में भारत को गोल्ड मिला है। ये लगभग 100 साल के इतिहास में पहली बार हुआ है। पूरे देश को, हर हिंदुस्तानी को हमारे चेस प्लेयर्स पर बहुत गर्व है।
The Board of Control for Cricket in India Men's Selection Committee announced a squad for the second test against Bangladesh on Sunday. it retained the same squad for the second test. The second test will be played in Kanpur from 27th of September. India beat Bangladesh by 280 runs on day 4 of the first test. Ravi Chandran Ashwin picked a 5-for and hit 100. Rishabh Pant also made his comeback to Test cricket with a century. McLaren's Lando Norris dominated the Singapore Grand Prix from start to finish on Sunday to take another chunk out of Max Verstappen's Formula One Championship lead. The 24-year-old Briton rode away from pole position at the floodlit Marina Bay circuit and led every lap to the checkered flag. Verstappen finished second for Red Bull, a massive 20.9 seconds behind, and McLaren's Oscar Piastri finished third. Verstappen's 59-point lead over Norris was cut to 52 points with 6 rounds, including 3 sprints remaining, while McLaren stretched its lead over Red Bull in the constructors' standings. Third seed Beatriz Haddad Maia fought back from a set down to beat top seed Daria Kasatkina 1-6, 6-4, 6-1 and claim her first WTA title of the season at the Korea Open on Sunday. The Brazilian overcame a shaky start after Kasatkina raced through the opening set in 26 minutes, losing just 2 points on her serve. Haddad Maia continued to be on the back foot in the second as well, trailing 0-2 before storming back to turn the match on its head. The world number 17 now has 4 career WTA titles and has now won 12 of her last 14 matches. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.